So, EVO recently ended, and with it, not only did we get the trailer for the last character of Season 4, which is also the first guest character in the series, that being Lucy from Cyberpunk, but we also got an exciting announcement that sometime next year, Strive will be receiving a massive 2.0 update. And since the FGC tends to thrive on hype culture, I figured, why not make a quick video going over some of the things I would like to see in the 2.0 update. So, with all that said, let's begin. So first and foremost, I would like it if the update was just an update, and what I mean by that is I don't want to have to pay for the update. To elaborate, basically fighting games sometimes have this thing called tile updates, which is massive updates that add new characters, makes huge balance adjustments, and sometimes adds new quality of life features. And in the past, before the internet and online patches were a thing, companies would release these updates as completely new versions of the game that you would have to pay for. And while at the time that made sense because, simply put, there was no other way to do it, in modern times, that business practice simply just does not make much sense. And unfortunately, some companies will still do tile updates like that. ArcSys is actually a really good example of this. For those who aren't aware, one of ArcSys' ongoing titles is a game called Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, a fighting game based off a gacha game with the same name. And a few years into the game's lifespan, they released a tile update called Rising, which added a bunch of new stuff like new characters, balance changes for all the characters, a bunch of cosmetics, and of all things, Fall Guys mode for the lobbies. The problem is that they released Rising as a whole new game, meaning that everyone who bought the original game basically had to buy the same game again. Making matters worse was that the original game had a decent chunk of paid DLC characters. Granted, I don't think things like cosmetics or the Fall Guys mode would have been added if it was just a big update, and I should make it clear that I don't own my own copy of either game, hence why you're seeing Strive footage right now. But regardless, making a decent chunk of your player base having to buy the same game again, in this day and age is just undoubtedly scummy, and I imagine most of the game's player base probably felt at least a little stung by that. And considering that at the moment, Strive has quite a larger player base than Grand Blue, I imagine approaching the 2.0 update that way could potentially bite ArcSys in the ass. Moving on to a much more positive topic, I would like it if, at the very least, the rest of the base roster got some new moves. At the start of Season 3, a decently large part of the announcement was that they were going to give brand new moves to the entirety of the base roster. And at first they started off really strong, since when Johnny released, officially kicking off Season 3, a grand total of 6 characters got brand new moves alongside his release. Ramlethal got Ondo, a move that not only helps bring enemies closer to you, but also serves to make her more than just Testament but better, which the fact that 2 characters were fairly similar at the time was a massive complaint with both characters. And the good stuff doesn't stop there, since Ino's Mad Love serves as a great pressure tool. Angie got a proper follow-up for his spin, Giovanna got a command dash that lets you use altered versions of some of her specials as follow-ups, Faust got the ability to store his items, and probably scariest of all, May got the ability to leap off her dolphins. Look, she was and still is a really annoying top tier. Either way, my point is clear. Not only did this first batch of new moves cover a large portion of the base roster, most of the characters that ended up getting a new move this patch got some key character-defining stuff. And unfortunately, ArcSys was not able to keep up the momentum, as a few months later with the release of Elfelt, only 2 characters got new moves. Granted, both moves were still quite useful, since Axel got Whistling Wind, which basically acts as a solid defensive projectile, and Potemkin got Heat Tackle, which helps him deal with air approaches, which for a while was a massive weakness with the character. So while we definitely got a lot less new moves, you could tell that they went for more of a quality over quantity approach with them, which is not something you could say about the next batch, as when ABBA released, only Milia got a new move, and unfortunately, that move was Artemis, which both at the time and in the present is a move nobody uses. Granted, I don't run into Milia players that often, but whenever I do, they almost never use this move, which kinda sucks since this was straight up the last move introduced in Season 3, as when Slayer came out, no one got a new move. Which brings us to modern day, where despite being near the end of Season 4, only one other move was added, that being Chip's Tightrope Run, which basically just acts as a horizontal version of his wall run. Granted, there is the possibility they might add a new move when Lucy releases, but that's just blind guessing on my part. Now, while it does suck that Arxis did massively slow down the rate at which they give base characters new moves, ultimately, I do understand why, since the first two batches of new moves did heavily focus on patching up weaknesses those particular characters suffered from. For example, Andy didn't really have a good way of capitalizing on a successful spin, Faust didn't really have any meaningful way of interacting with his items, and Axel didn't have any good defensive options or a way to deal with projectiles. And while this is massively good for balance, it does create a bit of a problem when most of the base roster characters that have yet to receive a new move don't really have any weaknesses that can be easily addressed by just giving them a new move. Hell, I'm going to be honest with you, if you asked me how Milia's or Chip's new moves meaningfully address any of their weaknesses, you would straight up get the most stone-faced reaction out of me. So overall, if Arxis does decide to continue giving base roster characters new moves, I hope they change the philosophy for designing their new moves. Before I end this video, I would like to go over some miscellaneous stuff that I think I should go over, but I couldn't think enough about to say to warrant a whole segment on it. So, first and foremost, the netcode. It's a well-known fact that Strive's netcode can get really finicky at times, especially when in a highly populated lobby. Hence why I think they should take some steps to definitely address that, so yeah. Now for a topic that's basically inevitable when speculating about any current fighting game. Character requests. And I really don't have much to say on this topic since the only character that I really wanted that they haven't added yet is Jam, and it's basically been soft confirmed that she's going to be one of the first two characters to come out with the 2.0 update. So aside from wanting some characters from Overture and, if we're lucky, maybe some BlazBlue characters, I am perfectly content with the current roster right now. And last but not least, I would like there to be more single-player / story content added to the game. So, Strive did a weird thing and basically have Season 4 take place after Dual Rulers, so naturally with such a fairly large time skip like that, I think there's a lot of lore worth exploring, especially since in that time skip, Dizzy and Kai managed to make a kingdom where humans and gears coexist, which, if you know anything about Guilty Gear lore, that shit's impressive. And as for what kind of single-player content I'd like to see get added, I don't really have any solid ideas other than maybe something like Virtual Frontier mode from Idle Showdown, which is basically just a fighting mode arcade run, but with roguelike elements, so that would be cool. Maybe bring back MOM from Xrd, that was a fun mode, but other than that, I don't really have any other ideas, but I do think it would be a good idea to have more single-player content, mainly so that newer players have an excuse to try out different characters in a less stressful context that isn't training mode. So yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. And overall, I'm really looking forward to the 2.0 update. You guys as excited for the update as I am? Is there anything you guys are wanting to be in the update? Be sure to let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section down below, and until next time, this has been Edgy Psychic, signing out.